Okay. I like you in the office, Wes.
Oh, I can't see me.
It's nice. Are you at your desk?
No, I'm in the conference room, the one we were in, because I don't want to like talk out loud in there.
Mm, right. Yeah, we're all coming back, and there was actually an article in Cranes about Cranes is actually giving
Moving.
up like 54,000 square foot space at 150 North Michigan. That has to
Yeah.
that has to be across the street from the cultural center, huh?
It's the Prudential building.
Well, they're moving into oh, they're subletting a space in the Prudential building. That's
Yeah.
happening from um, oh
Well, that's what you meant, right?
Oracle is sub. Oracle took over, bought a company that was in the Prudential building, and they had a lease running. That business had a lease, and Oracle took it, bought the company, and took over the lease. And now they're subletting out some of that space, and Cranes is moving into that space. They're like going from 54,000 square feet um, to 25,000 square feet.
Mm. Yeah.
But apparently, that I mean, not that we know much about downtown office leasing, but that apparently is quite a trend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it.
Hmm.
And what was the article I sent you over the weekend, Wes? Um,
The one about apartments, or I mean about
yeah, what I can't
like
remember
the
now.
rentals.
I remember now what it said. I can't remember the article. I remember sending you one.
Well, I don't remember exactly, but my response, I remember my response to you was that it was about uh, people coming back downtown in River North and stuff. But like I was, my response to you was that yeah, the managed rental buildings, not so much the condo rentals and kind of the like vintage rentals and stuff like the one that um, what's her name was talking about on our call last week. Uh, but the managed rental buildings, like the amenity buildings and all these newer ones, these high rises, they get kind of emptied out, by last fall and winter, and people weren't moving back in. But the last few months, they have just filled up. They're fuller and you know, uh, new average rents higher than they were before COVID.
No, that part surprised me. I mean, it has to have a trickle down effect. I think
Yeah,
people got out, and because of COVID, they got out, to the woods or whatever, but
yeah.
realized it can get pretty boring pretty fast.
Well, and I think some of at least with the rental buildings, so many of those people were ones that would have been moving in there over the last year and a half, but just nobody left and nobody moved, and people were staying at home, or staying at their parents' house, that sort of thing, going somewhere else. But it's a little different than the for sale market. Um, but that there was a pretty big pent up demand from that post COVID that they just kind of flocked back in as things started to open back up, and they suddenly had all these buildings suddenly had people coming in that would have been renting over the past year and a half. Just all came at once. Yeah. So I think there will be, like you said, a trickle down effect. It's just not quite the same thing because that was the rental market catching back up, I think, with the people that would have been renting.
Oh, I know what it was. It was an article about the McClure Court building being sold. I didn't realize
Oh,
it was a luxury.
yeah, right.
I thought that,
Because
I thought that building was condos. I didn't. Did they deconvert that to a rental building? I guess I wasn't aware of that.
no,
I mean, it's
not that I'm aware of either. But yeah, I didn't remember what the article was about.
yeah,
But
that's what it was about. It was about McClure, but they must have deconverted that building.
well, part of it's rental because otherwise the building wouldn't be sold. So, as a condo building, it couldn't be sold. So, um,
Yeah.
uh, I don't remember that they never converted that to condo.
It was
That,
built in condos.
no, they've
Oh,
never
it's always,
converted it to condo. It's always been
it's
rental.
always
Yeah,
been a rental building.
yeah. So yeah, there was no deconversion. There was nothing to deconvert from.
Okay,
It was
it was
rental.
always a rental building.
Yeah. But they did redo that, all the common areas and everything several years ago, before COVID, but probably about 3-4 years ago, maybe not quite that. It was all redone, and all those public spaces and new health club. And do you remember the Clear Court theaters were there, and that space got taken out and filled in with retail and everything. So they cleaned the building up. But the article was, the significance of it was that it was one of the first post-COVID sales of a rental building, and that's why it was of significance, because people are betting on them now.
Right. Well, and that brings us to the topic of the article that you had Terrence and I read about Joe Mansueto, who apparently he's still involved in Morningstar, but he's turned over the reins to a new CEO. But he's
right
involved, but has done a lot of investing in some surprising projects, not just doing nonprofit stuff, but he's doing that too, building communities and investing in communities. But
but also investing in a lot of real estate developments, hotel, including the Waldorf Astoria, the about the Chicago fire. And he's building a training facility for them, a big factory out in Humboldt Park that they're turning into residential.
Well, they said he bought something in Belmont Cragen, the article said too.
Yeah, I think that, I could be wrong, but I think that one was for the training facility. But
for the fire.
Yeah, and for the fire, and I think other things as well. Those usually include community programs. But I think it was a locomotive factory or something, or either auto or locomotive factory in Humboldt Park, that a big property that he bought for, I think, residential development. But yeah, the point is he's investing not only millions but billions of dollars in the city, and all of those things indicate that he's betting that Chicago does well over the next several years. So it's good to hear, because there's a lot of negativity going around. But
okay, here's what the article says: that he bankrolled a $50 million office redevelopment in Humboldt Park, and recently unveiled a plan to build a roughly $90 million training complex. That's in Belmont Cragen. He's kicking the tires on buying another soccer club overseas that could serve as a feeder into the fire, feeding talent into the fire. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, and he bought the Waldorf Astoria 50% less or something. He bought it
half what it sold for before.
Half of it with the people who sold it to him, half of what they paid for it.
And I saw, now that you mention it, we're talking about this one, but also Sam Zell was really on a buying spree too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right? I mean, it's a smart money, right?
Yeah. But to me, it's not only interesting, but kind of reassuring that people of that caliber, that are not only smart themselves, but have some of the best, knowledge base of people around them, are, betting hard on Chicago. So that's really good to hear.
And so are we.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Buy low and sell high.
Yeah.
Terrence,
secret.
what do you find? I mean, Terrence, what about your tenants? You have tenants. I mean, how everything good with them? You're not having issues with them, are you? Or
Knock on wood, I am having no issues, thankfully. I've been fortunate to get some good people in. I mean, the people that are in this neighborhood are fine. They're not, complaining about anything going on. They're not worried about, I need to get out of the city or anything. No, they're fine. They're happy. They're good.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting. I was out this weekend. We've been downtown since like Wednesday night, but it's just interesting this summer weekend and being out walking around. We went to a late dinner on Friday night to meet people, and it's almost impossible to get reservations at any downtown restaurant right now. A week and a half, the earliest a week and a half early, the only reservation I could get at Sunda on Friday night was at 9:15, and that was starting a week and a half before that night. So we were lucky to get in at all. But anyway, just walking past everything, all the cafes were full, even the little neighborhood bars. Walking down Wall Street, everything was busy. It was kind of definitely like a very celebratory atmosphere. Everybody was out. We did some early mornings, along downtown and along the Riverwalk, and went to the New Blue Bottle Coffee, and it was packed. And even at like 7:30 in the morning, it was just interesting, because then we'll go out to the suburbs for a family event way out in the suburbs, or we were in Lamont over the weekend too, and meeting up with a lot of family members and stuff. They're like, "How is it in the city? Are you afraid? Is it weird?" And I'm thinking, it's just so interesting, the contrast of what people imagine, from hearing about certain incidents on the news or whatever, to what they imagine it's like in the city versus the reality of it.
Well, they had a big shoot 'em up at the BP there at North and LaSalle. In fact, Carl was on his way home from work, happened to be on the bus as that was going down. It was midnight, Friday night or Thursday night. They had that at North and LaSalle. They had a big shoot 'em up. But I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it exactly, but there was a some party bus, and the driver.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
And it's not like nothing's happening, that's for sure. But we're so used to those things not happening in these areas that when they do, it's pretty big news. And still statistically, my family in Oklahoma is always like, "How is it? Are you afraid? Are you afraid?" And I'm like, statistically, I'm much more in danger visiting them in Tulsa, Oklahoma, any given day than I am where I live. Right. and move about in Chicago. And again, not that there aren't a lot of unsavory things happening, but where we move about in the city, it's not what people imagine, I guess.
Yeah, well, I remember about 10 or 15 years ago, when they were having flooding on the Mississippi River, and people were afraid to come to Chicago because they thought we were underwater.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Oklahoma, when I grew up in Oklahoma, I remember in the summer, my cousins would come visit from California, and their friends were worried for them coming to visit us because of Indians.
What?
Yes. So
really,
like teenagers
in like
and
the Old West, you mean, like cowboys and Indians?
That's what they thought.
Wow.
These were like people from the Pacific Palisades and stuff in California, and they literally envisioned that there were like gunslinging going on the way there.
Marshall Dillon was walking down the street,
right? So I guess people have a history of that.
That's too funny. Well, go ahead, Terrence.
No, I'm blown away. I mean, it's it's a matter. I think it's just a matter of obviously the way the things that make headlines are the big stories, and that's what goes nationwide. So that's what people think we are. We're street fests and shootings. That's
it. And shootings at street fest. Yeah.
Exactly.
But,
well, anyway, yeah, it's great to see big money. I mean, I think we're all bullish on Chicago. Obviously, we all live in the city, and
And the other thing I've noticed is, even that I'm kind of excited about, is even though there were a lot of closings during COVID and a lot of the retail spaces and particularly restaurants shut down, the speed at which it's coming back is really surprising. Not just like the restaurants I mentioned, that not only survived but are doing really well since COVID, but a lot of these empty spaces and restaurants that just closed are already being taken over by many of them by restaurant groups and stuff that have a very successful history. Most of the it's and some of the like in the River North area, we were saying, oh, that's a perfect replacement. Oh, I'm so glad this one is going in. And, oh, that's, even new storefronts that were finished, built and finished during COVID already being taken with really quality places coming in. And like I said, restaurants being replaced by, quite honestly, better run restaurants and everything. So I think, several months ago, we were envisioning somewhat of a ghost town, because that's kind of how it was.
It was
somewhat of a ghost town, yeah. And now it's like, it's really exciting to see what's going on, because not only are things coming back, but they're coming back better and more, like I said, more kind of quality things going in. So I'm really excited to see how it, happens over the next several months, and to see what all, where it goes.
Let's hope that it spells good things for the hospitality workers. And so many, the real issue that all the restaurants are having, I think, is they can't get people to come back to work because of how poorly they were compensated, and how that industry has just been, I believe, so abusive of its workers. And hopefully this will see some of those changes. Maybe I'm hoping that there'll be some changes along those lines, because right now, part of the reason why the restaurants are crowded, but they don't have the staff to accommodate it. And it's really stressful for the people that work there, for the staff.
But like you said, I think there's some cleanup going on in the industry. So when we did get into dinner on Friday night at Sunda, our server was super nice, and he had, we found out right away, this was only his second night on the floor. I think he had only been there for a handful of days, but his second night on the floor. But he was telling us so we were curious and started asking him questions about it. And he's been in the industry for 23 years. But so we were saying, of course, so what do you think? How you liking it here? He was really excited, because he said, even though he has this long history in the industry, that this is the first place he had worked where the staff had been there for like a minimum of 8 years. And that this was the first time, he was saying, his friends too, that he felt were really good and experienced, are now getting in with companies, restaurant groups that have a great history of, with their staff, and the people stay for a long time. So like I said, when we're talking about the, restaurants coming in, replacing old ones, it feels like the really experienced, well-run, companies that are treating the employees right are the ones that are not only surviving this, but now that's where, the experienced people are going. And I hope it does clean up the industry somewhat, the people, they get treated better.
Well, they almost have to do something to get, because they are so desperate for staff, for staff, that they have to do something like that. So So I think hopefully it'll be a good thing for those folks, and it'll all be good. But yeah, I know.
Good for Carl and his buddies too.
Well, I'm kind of right. Exactly. I'm kind of reminded of when we were living in Lake Forest for those 5 years, and then when we came back to the city, and we were just so excited at the caliber and the quality of the restaurants compared to what we were able to find in the North Shore and the suburbs. I mean, not that there aren't good places, obviously there are, but to find them, and to find the independent, not the TGI Fridays and the Taco Bell or whatever, the chains. I mean, it's to find the independently owned restaurants and establishments really tough to do. I mean, we had a tough time, and we were just so excited to come back to the city, and we'd go to the neighborhood mom and pop taqueria or whatever. Like, wow, this food is great.
Yeah. And, Megan, our transaction coordinator, was saying that we were talking about Franklin Room and Union and all of them opening back up. and Franklin Room had reopened, and she was saying they thought the food was good before. She's like, their new chef, new menu, new everything after reopening. She said it's unbelievable, and they did the same at Union. They've got a new chef, new menu, getting ready to open there, and they're doing the same at the Madison over in West Loop too. So same with these kind of established, well-run, good restaurants are even like up in their game too. So it's very exciting, I think.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we're coming up on 20 minutes. We want to keep these short. I don't know if they're sweet, but
That's short.
Any thoughts before we sign off, Terrence? You want to share?
No, I don't get out as much as you guys do, so I couldn't give you a pulse on the restaurants.
But you're investing billions as well, like the Morningstar guy, right?
Definitely. I'm all in Chicago. I'm not going anywhere. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good to hear.
All right. Well, everybody have a good week. Again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd love to help you in any way we can. And Mary Nack signing out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.